The story of the game goes much deeper and unveils more tragic, heartbreaking secrets as we embark on a new journey in the truth mode. Secrets that eventually might free the tormented spirit of Misao. Hi folks, I'm R, your narrator. This video will contain spoilers. With that in mind, let's begin. I've already made a video about the main plot, which you can watch by hitting the card above. If you have already watched it, you can still hang around for a quick review on what happened. However, you can still skip ahead to the time indicated for the truth mode story. Aki, a female protagonist, or also Akito, a male protagonist, whichever you decide to choose, embark on a journey unfolding the tragic story of Misao, a quiet girl who has gone missing for 3 months. Rumors have it that she has been long dead and that she has put a curse on the school, as her classmates weren't necessarily too kind to her. Sure enough, the school is sucked into a surreal world filled with evil entities who chase after the students and manage to kill many of them. Aki, determined to find Misao's soul and free her, encounters Mr. Onigawara, the ogre from Mad Father, who's capable of gifting the ability to cast a curse to vengeful souls in order to make things more fun for himself. He is also accompanied by a strange quirky girl called Miss Library, who is presumably the clone of Aya from Mad Father. Sayotomi, Yoshino and Kudo soon die, which reveals the backstory of Misao on how she was played around with by Tama, and how Sayotomi exposed her love text messages, making her feel embarrassed, on how she was badly bullied and physically harassed and abused by Yoshino and her goons, and also on how Kudo ignored these occurrences and didn't protect her. Aki is then finally given the choice to kill between Tama or their teacher, Mr. Kurata, who Aki obeys without any hesitance, which in fact is problematic for the male version, something important to note as I will get back to it in another video. The true ending is revealed when Aki chooses to kill Mr. Kurata, the murderer of Misao, who physically harassed her and finally killed her to destroy any evidence of his wrongdoings, after he cut her hands to keep as a trophy. After Aki finds the burial site of Misao, her soul seemingly gets freed, when in fact, she comes back, taking Tama with her to a different world, starting a new mission for Aki, to dig deep and unveil more secrets and truly free the trapped soul of Misao. Aki relives a past memory when she was looking for one of her contacts on the floor of the school hallway. This reveals that her eyes are actually red, similar to Onigawara, maybe suggesting she's an ogre, hence why she could overcome Misao's curse, or having something to do with the test tank she found earlier. Misao approaches Aki for the first time and offers help to find her missing contact, showing that Misao was in fact a kind girl, someone who the people saw weak and mistreated. Aki then suddenly wakes up in the ogre's world known as the Dark Space, similar to the world Aya traveled to in Mad Father. Confused to what's happening and why she woke up here when she was in the classroom, she encounters Mr. Onigawara. Onigawara informs Aki that he called her here to free the souls of the people who mistreated Misao. Yoshino, Kudo, Sayotomi, and maybe even Mr. Kurata, as what is happening to them now is beyond any fair punishment. Confused to why Onigawara chose her to do these deeds, she asks him why not Tama, to which the ogre responds that Aki is the only one who could do this. It's the nature of what she is that makes her capable of saving them. Maybe someone who's an ogre themselves and able to travel to different realms without being harmed. Aki is then faced with 3 tombstones, which belong to Kudo, Yoshino, and Sayatomi. When interacting with Kudo's tombstone, Aki lived through the memory of Kudo when he was younger and closer to Misao. A child Misao is seen being bullied by a random kid while she's in the playground. Kudo comes in, helping Misao and pushing the bully away. Misao reminisces to herself how kind Kudo used to be. Skipping ahead to when Misao was being picked on by Yoshino in the classroom about dating Tama, the story this time is seen through the perspective of Kudo. Kudo walks away ignoring the situation, thinking to himself that this is what happens when Misao dates Tama, seemingly being jealous that Misao is dating Tama, suggesting that Kudo in fact loved Misao. Aki is then transported into a pitch-black room with several clones of Misao surrounding a crying Kudo cowering in the middle, verbally and mentally abusing him. They call him a coward and a traitor and a waste of space. Kudo, engulfed by his own guilt, cries and shouts for forgiveness. Aki then approaches Kudo, explaining to him that these girls aren't actually Misao, and in fact, they are the projection of Kudo's guilt and misdeeds. When Kudo starts believing that, he calls out to Misao, when she appears and says that Kudo is a good guy, and she loved him too. This absolves Kudo's self-guilt and makes him be reborn as a new baby. Aki thinks to herself if that was the real Misao or just yet another projection of Kudo's memory, with it being presumably just another illusion, as later Aki learns that Misao in fact has become engulfed with hatred and grudge, which have visibly misshaped her into a monster, drowned in her own trauma, being stuck and not moving on. Soon later, Aki interacts with Yoshino's tombstone, which teleports her into another memory. In there, Aki witnesses what happened to Misao when Yoshino sent in a boy, locking the bathroom's door so no one could enter. This memory is quite traumatic, with Misao begging for help and mercy, when in fact, she gets none. The motionless body of Misao then keeps repeating, "Never forgive." Aki moves out of the restroom, where the soul of Yoshino is being bullied and beaten up by several clones of Misao, with Yoshino crying for forgiveness. The clones seem to be yet the projection of Yoshino's guilt and sins, as the clones don't stop until they're destroyed with a baseball bat. Aki tries to approach Yoshino and get her to leave this memory, but she seems to have become traumatized when suddenly the real ghost of Misao appears, having her face hidden in shadows, confronting Aki to why she's helping Yoshino, being engulfed in rage and grudge. Aki tries to convince Misao that this only makes her get more trapped, as this really wouldn't clear her heart. Aki explains that she's here to help Misao move on and be happy, as being vengeful only stops her from ascending. Misao, being unconvinced and still angry, lets Aki leave this memory, with Yoshino being reborn as a baby as well. Aki then interacts with the third tombstone, belonging to Sayatomi. In there, Sayatomi is talking to one of her friends in the restroom, with Misao being in one of the stalls. Sayatomi acts nice there and says that Misao's poem was cute and lends her handkerchief, when in fact, Misao knows that Sayatomi only pretends, as she was the one who put up her texts for the school to see. Leaving the restroom, Aki witnesses how Sayatomi is being punished, as both Tama and Sayatomi are enjoying lunch together and having a romantic time. Misao walks in, with Tama leaving Sayatomi behind and getting with Misao. This upsets Sayatomi, who tells Tama that he said Misao is just a game, revealing that Tama is a player and likes to mess around with girls. And when he approached Misao before dating her, he just wanted to play games, demonstrating that Tama is a horrible person as well. But in this memory, as Misao is controlling it, she torments Saitomi, with Tama ending up with her, with Saitomi getting a taste of her own medicine. Aki then comes in, telling Saitomi to move on, as Tama is nothing but a superficial projection of a dreamy boy. Someone who's shallow and doesn't have any depth. Someone worthless that these girls are mindlessly fighting for, who treats them like toys. Saitomi is reminded of when Tama left her to die, when she realizes her stupidity, picking up Aki's bat and destroying the thought of Tama, represented in her punishment, meaning that she mentally finally moved on. Saitomi is then reborn as a child as well, with her soul being finally freed. Aki then tries to cross a thin bridge when Onigawara appears and hands her a hand mirror, something that will play an important part, which suggests that Onigawara is fully aware of what is to come later, and what Aki will have to face. This, in theory, could suggest that the entire story of Misao was a test for Aki to get prepared for being an ogre, or an oni. As it seems, the game in fact is not about Misao or the other characters, but in fact, it is all about Aki and what she is to become in the future. An ogre, just like Onigawara. Keep this in mind, as I will make a subsequent video explaining and theorizing what the entire game is really about, and the significance of Onigawara, Aki, the male version of Aki, Miss Library, and much more. When Aki approaches Mr. Kurata's tombstone, she finds Ayaka's hairpin lying next to it. When she interacts with it, she witnesses the events of the day Ayaka was killed and what really happened. When Ayaka was snooping around Mr. Kurata's desk, as she had a crush on him, she stumbles upon Misao's cut-off hands. This disgusts and terrifies Ayaka, when suddenly Kurata barges in and pushes Ayaka aside, who witnesses in terror Kurata having an abnormal obsession with these body parts, who says that these hands have miraculously stayed fresh after 3 months, something we will get back to later. It's soon revealed that Kurata was the one who in fact killed Ayaka, who lied to Aki to find a tranquilizer, giving him enough time to finish off Ayaka. When Aki is back to the dark space, she wonders to herself why Misao's body didn't rot, when Onigawara explains that it's part of the power of the curse. As Misao was very attached to the living world, her body even in pieces didn't rot, as she wanted to live, something that was taken away from her. Aki then interacts with Kurata's tombstone, taking her to his memories, where she learns that Kurata in fact had a figurative mask on, a representation of not being truly himself, with all the attention he's getting being false, as he doesn't feel it's towards his true self. Aki then relives Kurata's memories, controlling his body. He overhears 3 girls, including Ayaka, gossiping about what a beautiful man he is, having beautiful appearance. But just before they are about to talk about his charisma and personality, Kurata runs to the restroom, being angry that all they care about is appearance, not realizing they spoke about his personality as well. This showcases what a self-conscious and insecure person Kurata is, who deeply cares about what his teenage students think about him, being upset when they don't over-glorify his personality. Kurata says to himself that his face is only a mask, when suddenly Aki finds a yearbook of Mr. Kurata, who had acne and maybe not a decent face to his own standards, as a teenager. This instigates another memory of Kurata when he was a teenager. He was bullied and dismissed as a teenager, having no friends, with everyone treating him badly, even though he was generally kind back then. Exploring Kurata's apartment further, Aki finds a cat, which instigates another memory of Kurata. The teenage Kurata walking home from school, thinking to himself that everyone hates him, he finds a stray wounded cat, who's in need of urgent medical attention. Kurata rushes the cat to the vet, who inform him that the cat is beyond saving, which makes Kurata break down and bury it, having a guilt trip to what if he found the cat earlier. Maybe then he could have saved it, displaying what a kind and caring person Kurata used to be, and how much he loved animals before the cruel world changed him. Another memory shows how he was consistently bullied by everyone, except for a girl called Takano, who showed him respect and attention. Takano promised Kurata that she will protect him and eat lunch with him outside of the school, where he took refuge from bullies. Kurata notices Takano's pretty hands, which might have been the point where he started having his obsession with hands. After many days of spending time together, eating lunch, but not talking much, instead appreciating the peace and silence, Kurata starts developing feelings towards Takano. Kurata then one day confesses his love to Takano in an uneasy manner, holding her very tight. Takano breaks loose from Kurata's grasp and explains that she's sorry, but she didn't approach him with the same intention. She wanted to protect him as she felt bad for him. This breaks Kurata's heart, who suddenly has a meltdown, bursting into tears and shouting, "Why won't anyone accept me?" tackling Takano and starting to strangle her. A teacher then suddenly notices this and puts a stop to it. This shows what Kurata meant by saying that people only care about appearance and don't care about the real him, the lonely teenager whom nobody accepted. Kurata, even though growing up to be charismatic and have good looks, always had the need for someone to truly love him for who he truly is, the teenager who never grew up, believing that he's an outcast. Aki then travels to a different reality where Kurata is stuck stabbing the corpse of Misao non-stop, thinking to himself why nobody accepts him. Kurata explains that changing his face would make him be more accepted, which turned out to work, but in reality, deep down he always knew that people only accepted him for his new face, but not for who he truly is, showing what a superficial world they live in, where people only care about appearances and bully the weak, as if it's normal, something that the world revolves around. Aki then responds to Kurata that despite his negative view on life, there are good people out there, people who accept him for what and who he is. She explains to Kurata that people loved him for his kind and reliable personality, confirming this, that she also believed that, despite all the atrocities Kurata committed and taking a different path, is actually kind at heart. Kurata then transforms back into his teenage buddy when Aki hugs him and informs him that he shouldn't be sad, a representation of his true self in his own mind being finally accepted, which makes him sob and burst into tears. Interacting with Kurata's grave and Ayaka's hairpin is completely optional, something that is left for you as the player to decide if Kurata actually deserves being absolved or not. Finally, Aki can interact with Tama's grave, realizing that Tama was being hunted by Misao, as she couldn't move on from him, with them now being dragged into the dark space. Aki teleports into a dark room with the real ghost of Misao, her face being hidden in shadows, taking control of Tama, not willing to give him up, telling Aki that everyone can go free apart from Tama, as he belongs to her. Misao continues that she knows Tama was playing her. She hates him for it, but at the same time, loves him, being a sign of her mindless obsession with Tama. Misao tells Aki that she knows Aki loves Tama too, so maybe they can all stay here and have a happy life. When suddenly Tama wakes up, addressing Misao as a monster, and runs away like the coward he is. This surprises Misao to why he called her a monster, when Aki uses the hand mirror Onigawara gave her earlier to show to Misao what she truly looks like now. After a quick look at the mirror, Misao witnesses in horror the monster she has truly become, having a deformed face, a representation of her hate, grudge, and obsession. Misao then starts crying, saying that she has never done anything to deserve such a cruel life. All she wanted was to live a happy life, having someone to live with, and that she's tired and scared of being alone. Aki informs her that she will be there for her, and Misao doesn't have to be alone anymore. This makes Misao to truly become happy, transforming back into her normal shape. This allows Aki to finally go back to her classroom, with Aki thanking her and writing on the blackboard, "Thank you," for finally freeing her from her hate, grudge, and obsession. During the credit roll, Aki is seen being back to the normal world, but for Tama and Ayaka, they have to now take care of the reborn babies of Sayatomi, Yoshino, and Kudo, alongside Miss Library. Ayaka is seen to be revived by Onigawara after her death, just like how Onigawara revived Alfred from Madfather, which makes Ayaka fall in love with Onigawara, now an immortal being who's possibly 1,000 years old, a massive upgrade from Mr. Kurata. I'm now working on a video diving deep into the lore of Onigawara, Miss Library, the origins of Aki, and how she's an actual Oni like Onigawara, the universe of the two games, and much more. So make sure to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell not to miss out on that video. It's been your host Star. Till the next video, have a fantastic day. And I really mean it, as I've noticed some of you have mentioned in the last poll, you've been having some tough times. I really hope whatever is upsetting you resolves very soon. Take care.